Hello everyone, I'm Soma Mazumdar.
And I'm Orod and welcome to Kanban Lab podcast. In each episode, we'll pick a common question and dive into a different aspect of Kanban, exploring its principles, practices, and applications, and answering that question.
Our goal in this podcast is to demystify Kanban and help listeners understand how it can benefit their teams and organizations through addressing the common misconceptions, clarifying concepts, and answering questions about Kanban. Morning, Orod.
Good morning, Soma. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, and how is Melbourne today?
I'm very good, a little bit jet lagged still. And the Melbourne today is not the best day. We had a very big rain last night, and today it's still and cloudy and cold and windy.
Oh,
And
that's
to be honest,
wonderful.
after 4 weeks in Europe, which was summer, it's a little bit difficult to adapt.
Mm. Well, y- you will get used to it soon enough, I believe. So, do you want to hear what is Sydney like today?
Absolutely.
Well, we don't have a lot of sun. I think we are just trying to learn in spirit. So the sun is also trying to do the same here. It is a bit overcast and windy and also cold. So
There
we
you
are not
go.
very far away.
All right, so I'm not jealous. That's good.
Yes.
All
Well,
right, so what have you heard recently about Kanban that you want to talk about it today?
interesting. So while you were away on a vacation, I did talk to some people and
Mm-hmm.
we have a new question for today. So someone told me that they are using Scrum, so they were just confused if they could use Kanban with Scrum or not. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
question for today. What do you think?
Mm. That's a very good topic. A lot of people that I talk to, they also have the same concern and they say, we are using Scrum, we don't want to do Kanban, or the client doesn't want to do Kanban. And I always tell people that you don't need to. In fact, it's better not to drop everything you do and then from tomorrow do something else. And I think in a few episodes ago, we talked about Scrum Ban and this kind of thing. So, yeah, so basically, the answer is absolutely you can use Kanban practices and especially Kanban principles with Scrum or anything else. And it just helps you to do whatever you do it a little bit better.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, almost all the Scrum team already use some of the Kanban practices and principle,
Hmm.
especially Kanban board. They
Yes.
already using it. So Kanban board is not part of Scrum framework, but they already use it.
Yes, that's true. That is definitely true. Um, there's another thing, like whenever I hear a question like this, the first thing that goes to my mind is that what is the current state? What's happening? Why are you even thinking about it? So it's always back to the root cause, right? That
Mm-hmm.
so if someone is like, okay, we are using Scrum from a long time, and like we are just confused to move to something else, can we mix it a bit? My question would be like, what is the current pain point you
Mm-hmm.
are having that you're trying to solve with something else? So focus on that maybe instead of
Yeah.
just trying to find a solution without understanding the problem better. So and as you mentioned that we can definitely use the practices and the principles of Kanban with absolutely anything that you
Mm-hmm.
are using or you are practicing at the moment, so there is no doubt about it. But
Mm-hmm.
the principles and the practices are not about any framework, right? It's the
Yeah,
way of working better, so that can
that's
be
right.
combined with anything.
Yeah. So let me tell you a story that happened to me.
Mm,
It was a few years ago. I was a delivery manager,
mm,
and I try to use a lot of, I focus on Scrum framework a lot, right? And
mm,
I always encourage people slash kind of push people to do whatever Scrum said. And when people ask me, why we need to do it, because of Scrum,
yeah.
And they hired someone
Mm,
as a, I think his title was engineering manager.
mm,
And he told me one thing which helped me a lot to become a lot better practitioner.
mm,
And he told me, don't manage workers, right?
mm,
Just focus on the work. At
mm,
that time, I didn't understand exactly. I understood what he said. I
mm,
didn't understand this is one of the Kanban principles.
mm,
A few years later, when I learned Kanban and introduced to Kanban properly, and
mm,
I went to my first Kanban course,
mm,
I learned that this is one of the Kanban principles, right?
mm,
So rather than focus on the framework and tell people what to do and try to manage people, and this is a very common anti-pattern that I've seen with a lot of Scrum Masters. So
mm,
they tell people what to do, how to do, those kind of thing. And after that, I told people, don't focus on individuals and worker because they know, at least most of them,
mm,
they already know what is good for them.
mm,
You just help them to focus on the flow of the work
mm,
and let them to organize how they want to work around the work.
mm. That's very important. Now that we are onto stories, so let me share one of my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So, in one of the organization I was working with in the past, I was coaching the iteration manager and the delivery manager for a team. Now, their structure was a bit, I wouldn't call it weird, but yes, like a little bit unusual, where they were doing like they were practicing safe, but scrums within the teams. So they
Mm-hmm.
had to had a delivery manager and iteration manager for the same team,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to learn more about like how can they improve, how can they go
Mm-hmm.
to the next level. So we literally started with one practice, which
Mm-hmm.
changed how they looked at work and how they looked at the team. So their first pain point was that the team wasn't feeling much accountable about the
Mm-hmm.
work. There was lack of ownership from the team.
Mm-hmm.
So always the iteration manager had to kind of like dictate that
Mm-hmm.
what everyone needs to do.
Yeah.
All we did is that we started the stand ups by reading the board from right to left
Okay. Yes.
and only focusing on the work, not calling
Mm-hmm.
out individual people that who is
Mm-hmm.
doing what. And also, one of my recommendation to the iteration manager is that how about you ask the team to, rotate who is going to facilitate the session.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they reached a point where they were only discussing blockers, and after a few weeks, I got to heard back from both of them because they were kind of the leaders for the team. They said that the attitude changed. The moment we showed trust that we are not here to manage people, we are only here to manage work in a more effective and better way, everyone was more accountable and they had their ownership increased within the
Yeah.
team, and they started showing that with each other because the moment you focus on what's going on with the work, the
Mm.
spotlight goes away from individual people.
Yeah.
And one of the main anti-patterns I keep seeing in stand-ups is that calling out individual names.
Yeah.
When you do that, it also, like, honestly, if someone does that to me in a meeting, suddenly all the spotlight is on me and I wouldn't feel comfortable because the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that comes to my mind, shit, what do I say now? Even though
Yeah.
I know what's going on with my work and everything, but doing that on a daily basis, just puts me
Mm-hmm.
under so much of pressure, and it also makes me feel that no one trusts me, that I
Yeah.
can take care of my work. But the moment you keep asking me about the work I'm doing, I'm like, oh
Mm,
yeah, fine. You know what, this is happening, this is what the plan is. There's a blocker, could you help or something? The focus is
that's right.
changed.
And also, when you focus on a work, then you realize that multiple people actually working on one item at the
Yeah,
same time. Maybe
yeah.
someone fixed the bug, someone tested, someone code
Mm,
review.
mm,
And without pushing people, we actually encourage them to
mm,
talk, multiple people talk on the same job, and also
mm.
encourage the teamwork without
Yes,
pushing people to work together. You know what
yes,
I'm saying?
yeah,
So yeah,
collaboration.
what you said, I think this is a really good one, and that's something I always encourage people to facilitate the daily scrum or daily stand-up. This is
Mm,
how normally we facilitate the Kanban meeting. So
yeah.
rather than focus on individual, we focus on the board and the work, and we
Mm,
start from,
right.
right to left.
Yeah.
So there are two types of the two way to facilitate this meeting. One is called round robin, which is very
Mm,
common in Scrum teams. So
yeah.
they go through the team and individuals, and
Mm,
they answer those three questions. And the other one is walk the board, which is
mm,
what you basically explain
yeah.
right to left and focus on the
Mm,
work and rather than individual. So, what other principles of Kanban do you think can help Scrum teams? I think at the moment we talk about, manage the work, not the worker. That's
mm,
one of the principle. You
yeah.
also talk about the walk the board. That's one of the facilitation option that we normally use in Kanban. Is there
Mm.
anything else that you can think of?
Yes, there are so many actually. So another one that's my favorite one is that start where you are. So
Mm-hmm.
even though you want to change a lot of things, do not
Yeah.
try to achieve them overnight. So wherever you are, whatever your current state is, observe it carefully, try to analyze it in a better way, and try to understand what, like how and why you have reached there.
Mm-hmm.
Based on that, take the next step. That's one. That's from the change management principle. And
Mm-hmm.
the best one that I love about the service delivery principle is trying to focus on customer centricity. And
Yeah.
this is something I keep telling people, that when you understand Kanban, you understand that how much focus is on the customers here, because the service delivery talks about that, and this will go into the definition of done.
Mm.
So this was one of the meetups that I attended recently, and they were talking about definition of done. And it came out that individual teams will have their only component kind of definition of done, which is not a very good idea when you try to think of customer, because that is one thing that Scrum teams can actually embed in them. That whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking of any work item, always think of the quality in build, and how, even though you are a component team, doesn't matter, always think of the end customer and how you can incorporate that in your definition of done, so that you are focusing on the customer
Mm.
and user at the end. So build your definition of done in a way so that you can always reflect that through your work. And in build,
Mm.
quality is very important, because whenever we are delivering a service or a product, quality is the first thing we should always think of.
Yeah.
So that's another point I think
Yeah,
that
no,
everyone
that
can
that's
apply.
that's a good one. Another principle, Kanban principles that helped me to become a better Scrum Master many years ago was make policies explicit. I think
Mm,
it's also very common in Scrum community that
yeah.
they get together and agreed on how they
Mm,
want to work
mm,
together, that kind of thing.
yeah.
However, I think still a lot of Scrum Masters don't really, or maybe ignore what works for the team. They just focus more on the framework, which is
Mm,
again anti-pattern. It doesn't do anything with Scrum. It's about the Scrum Masters.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, this also helps me a lot to talk to people, ask them what's actually good for them, what they want to happen to do their best.
Mm.
and also make it explicit, make it visible, and
Yes.
make sure that it's visible to everyone.
Mm.
And every now and then go back again, review. And also,
Mm.
if someone asks a question, you can say, this is, what we agreed, last time.
Mm.
And of course, another thing, it's very important. That people needs to make sure that what we agreed today, it
Mm.
doesn't mean that it's valid forever.
Yeah.
So every now and then it's a good practice to again sit with the team, review and see which one is still valid, which one
Mm.
needs to be changed, because over time, we learn a little bit more about what we thought,
Yeah.
and it can change.
That's a very good one, and that is one of the practices that I keep referring back to people, because again, coming from different countries, different background, we all
Hmm.
interpret things in a different way. And when the team changes, the interpretation also changes if it is not explicit.
That's
So
right.
it is
Yes.
very important to keep reviewing them on a
Mm.
regular basis, so that and sometimes people might think that oh, it's such a wastage of time if we are doing this in our retros. When you see the benefit of it, like for example, if you have a really good entry and exit criteria, that's like definition of ready and definition of done.
Mm.
Now that is going to help you to reduce your time when you refine together or when you deliver work together, right? Like, because everyone is on the same page already, what kind of work can get into your system and how would you deliver it to your customer.
Mm.
So now let's say that like something changed. Let's say there are a few new team members,
Yeah.
and there are this entry criterias and exit criterias, definition of ready and definition of done,
Mm-hmm.
are there on a Confluence page or
Mm.
anywhere that like the team has put it up in their share space,
Yeah.
that hey, refer to those. Now they
Mm-hmm.
have interpreted it in a different way. What would happen is that they would start doing things in a different way, which the other team members are not aligned to. And when
Mm.
you think about the impact of that, it's actually going to cause you more time or create waste in the system. So it is
Yeah.
always a good idea when you have new people coming into your team, sit together, align that if it makes
Mm.
sense. Also, let's say the team has been together for quite a lot of time and they have matured how they work together. So
Mm-hmm.
go and also review that whether those policies make sense, or you can add something, you can remove something. So you have to continue doing this so that you can save time in
Yeah.
other sessions.
Now that's a very good point. Misunderstanding and misinterpretation, I think it's a very big problem that we as a human have. To
Mm,
me, a lot of problem we have with each other, it's about miscommunication and
yes.
that kind of thing. To avoid this happen,
Mm,
one thing that I normally do, and it works for me, is to, when we write these policies, write them in a very simple language that
mm,
everyone understand,
yeah.
and write it in some bullet points rather
Mm,
than write a very long essay that people needs to spend 5 minutes to read and understand it.
yes.
Just keep things simple, right?
Mm,
And simplicity is one of the agile manifesto principle as
yes.
well, right?
Yes.
So simplify things and write it in a simple language that everyone understand, and it's also easy for everyone to read.
Mm,
Another thing that I really like about Kanban principle is Kanban has a very scientific approach. So
mm,
Kanban always in Kanban, we measure
yes.
things, right?
Mm,
Because we believe that there is no perfect solution, there is no right or wrong solution.
mm,
And basically, we don't exactly know what is the best approach, right? So
mm,
what we normally do is we find the problem, we
mm,
start measuring, and then when we introduce a change, we
mm,
continue measure to see
yes.
if the change has a positive impact or a
Mm,
negative impact, or it has no
exactly.
impact, right?
Mm,
So that's, I think, another good Kanban practice that can help Scrum teams. So make sure to always measure what matter to
mm,
you and the team and the clients, So for example, time to market, which we call it normally lead time, right? So this is a
Mm.
really good metrics that even Scrum team can use it. However, Scrum by time boxing and sprint, uh, they try to simplify this lead time as well, but
Yeah,
still, I think it's a valid and
measure.
valuable
Definitely.
metrics.
Yeah. There's another thing on that actually, and it's a very, very good point you raised about measuring everything we do. So I have a coachee who's a product owner, and he has recently started measuring all the events in Scrum. Like, for example, he did change how they do planning.
Mm-hmm.
So he has put in, because it's a hypothesis, right? Like, if you are
Mm-hmm.
changing the approach of how you are doing sprint planning, you should always put in the criteria that what will make it a success, what will make it, a not non-success factor.
Yeah.
So what he did is that he created that hypothesis that if we do this, this will save us time and also the team will feel more empowered. And he
Mm-hmm.
put in some measures and he let the team know that, look, if we reach here, that
Mm-hmm.
means we can continue doing it. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
we are trialing this for like 3 or 4 sprints, sprint planning, and
Yeah,
see what the result is. So nothing is permanent. Everything
that's
will
true.
change based on the result. And the
Mm-hmm.
team had a really positive impact on that. Like, they were checking the result as well to see that if it is making sense for them, if it is a new, like, way of planning for some time. So what I would say to all the scrum masters and the product owners out there, whenever you want to make a change, make it clear to people as well that it's an
Mm-hmm. Thanks
experiment or a
everyone for listening.
hypothesis. It's
That's
not
right.
gonna
And please
last
let us know if you
forever.
ever used
Exactly.
So
Kanban
in that way,
practices
what
or
we'll do is, like,
principle
you'll
in a Scrum
also
team
get them
and how was
onboarded
your
on the journey,
experience.
so they
Mm-hmm.
will
Thank you.
not be like, oh shit, another change coming, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It will be more like, fun experiment, that okay, let's try and see what's the results are, and make the results visible to everyone, so that everyone can
Yeah.
make the decision together, and
Mm-hmm.
you gain trust as well in this process.
No, good one. By the way, I've noticed that you use shit a lot today.
Maybe because of the shitty weather we have.
No, that's good. So basically, what you mentioned is again one of the Kanban practices, improve collaboratively
Hmm.
and evolve experimentally.
Experimentally.
So
Yes.
if you want to make a change, make sure that everyone clear, everyone agree,
Hmm.
and also this change is just an experiment, so it's just a
Hmm.
hypothesis, and we never know if it's a right decision or wrong decision until actually
Exactly.
we do it and measure it and see what will be the impact and if we had any progress or not.
That's true.
So I think we talk about quite a lot of things. So just to wrap it up, is there anything else you want to add, Soma?
No, I think we are really covered a lot of principles and practices of Kanban, which can be embedded with exactly anything you are doing. So we are fine.
Good. All right. So just to kind of summarize and wrap up what we discussed. Um, so yes, you definitely can use Kanban practices and principles with Scrum, and it helps you to become a better Scrum Master. And so you can use, for example, we talk about improve collaboratively and evolve experimentally. We talk about make policies explicit. Um, and also, most Scrum team already use Kanban board, which is a Kanban tool. It doesn't do anything with Scrum,
Mm.
and that helps all the team. We also talk about walk the board, which helps team to facilitate their meetings, especially daily Scrum.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank
Okay, thanks
you.
everyone for listening. I think that would be it for today.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Hope it helps. Thanks, Orod.
Thank you.